Starting on Wednesday, all but one region of Ontario will be in phase 2 of reopening. Peel and Toronto got the good news today. That means malls, restaurant, patios, and hair salons can reopen. But Windsor-Essex, on the other hand, isn't there yet. It's the only region in the province that will stay in phase 1. Here's the Premier earlier today on that.
No one wants to see every region of Ontario open more than I do, but we have to do it right. And unfortunately, right now, the threat of this virus in Windsor-Essex is still too great. While we've seen the trends improve in Toronto and Peel, we haven't yet seen those targets met in Windsor. But I want to reassure the people of Windsor-Essex today that our government is doing everything in our power to make sure your region can reopen as quickly as possible.
The Premier also says farmers are partly to blame because of COVID-19 outbreaks in the agri-food industry. Of the 32 cases reported in Windsor-Essex today, 31 were workers in that sector. So what should the province do? Drew Dilkens is the mayor of Windsor. He joins me from that city to talk about this. Hi, Mayor Dilkens. Good to see you as always.
Hi, Vashi.
Mayor, I remember talking to you maybe 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. I can't remember when other places in the province started moving in. You knew people in your community were already beginning to get antsy and feeling frustrated. I can only imagine what the reaction is like, 3 weeks later, as they remain the only people who are not now moving into a sort of phase where restrictions are lessened. What did you hear today?
I have not had, in my 5.5 years of mayor, I've not had a single issue that has created more of a response than the phone calls coming in today and the emails to my office where people are just angry over the decision not to move forward. And for 100 days, Vashi, we have asked people to follow the rules, to self-isolate, social distance, wash your hands, wear a mask, all of the things that everyone's being asked to do. These people in this city have followed those rules. And the numbers in the city proper are extraordinarily low. And so we get that we are part of a region and we're not going to carve out the city from the rest of the region. But the problem is the spotlight is on the migrant farm worker population. That's where the issue is today. And what I don't see is a plan to deal with the problem in front of us. So what I don't want to happen is to get a week on and the next Monday be having the same conversation with you and everyone else saying, yep, the numbers are still high and we haven't drilled down on the problem. And so what we really need to happen here are the farm owners to step up, to take responsibility and make sure that their employees are being tested. We've got the isolation facilities in place to be able to allow these people to self-isolate. We've got field hospitals for the sickest of the sick. We need the farm owners to take responsibility, get these folks tested, 8,000 of them, so that we can move forward as a region.
Let me ask you what your conversation, I want to ask about that sort of as a solution, but then also your conversations with the Premier around this. Have you put this to him? I mean, he was very hard on the farmers today. Obviously, his government has some responsibility in this as well. What are those conversations like? And has he, said in a week, it looks like you might be there, in, 2 weeks, anything like that?
Yeah, I had a conversation last week with the Premier. I had one again today with him, and I was just explaining to him the situation on the ground here. And so he was very clear today, as he was last week, that he just can't understand why the farm owners aren't taking responsibility for their employees and getting these folks tested. And what I was happy to hear today is that he talked about additional tools that he would have available in his tool chest to be able to make this happen. And I think it's fairly obvious. I mean, if you look at one of the solutions, certainly what's going on in long-term care in Ontario, where you can now go visit someone in long-term care, but you must show proof that you've had a COVID negative test in the last 14 days. We can't force someone to get a swab put up their nose and get the test, but you can't go in the facility unless you do. And so from a farmer's perspective, because there is such an isolated outbreak amongst these farms, I suggest that one of the solutions would be to mandate that you can't go to work on a farm and touch our Canadian food supply unless you can prove that you're COVID negative. And that way the workers have a choice. Either they want to get the test, and if they don't, then guess what? They're not going to get paid and they're going to be off work.
Are there not some additional considerations, though, these workers are in a pretty precarious position, right? They're here because they're trying to earn some money for their families, for themselves. They're living in conditions that are not ideal, as we've seen through, the lens of these outbreaks. And, I wonder if there are some inherent sort of complications and considerations to that as a measure to solve all of this.
You bet there are inherent complications, and what I propose is not a perfect solution, but it's a great start. to move 8,000 people prospectively through the testing process. But there is no doubt something that was brought to my attention last week is, in fact, of the 8,000 workers that are here doing jobs that, frankly, Canadians don't want to do. They're important jobs to make sure that there are groceries on the shelves. And these are positions that we fought for at the height, at the very start of this pandemic. We fought to be able to allow the migrant workers to come to Canada. But one thing that was drawn to my attention, Vashi, last week is that about 2,000, up to 2,000 of the 8,000 workers that are here may be illegal. And so they may not want to touch our healthcare system or any government-run program in any meaningful way to have their name recorded. There may be a fear for that to happen. And so, I don't think the purpose of this program is to identify and deport people. It's to try and identify people and help them get well so that we're protecting the general population. But I get that that's one of the factors, one of the complications that will require some sort of federal and provincial consideration, something that's above my pay grade, but certainly we know about now, and we have to consider what a solution would look like with that very important population.
Based on your conversations, do you have the sense that the provincial and federal governments are as seized with this as they should be? And I ask you that because until Mexico last week said we're suspending this program, there were a lot of advocacy groups saying, the inspections aren't up to par, the conditions aren't working for these workers. Like, we should be alarmed that these 2 people died. Something needs to change. And really, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about it from either Premier Ford or the Prime Minister until this happened with Mexico, and a lot more questions became directed their way. Do you think they're as seized with it as they should be?
Never in my life did I think we would have an order issued by the government of Mexico saying it's unsafe to send workers to Canada, but that's what we heard last week. And so they seem to have overcome that. And then the ambassador, I watched his interview with you just a few minutes ago. It looks like they're going to be working with a very discrete set of farms that are known to operate safely. But listen, this is a complex issue. There's no doubt about it. It's not as easy as it appears on the surface. But this is like, everyone at home has a screwdriver with the changing bits, and you've got the handle and you keep changing the bits to deal with the situation that you have or the screw you have in front of you. And we need the federal government to hold their handle, and we need the province to try different bits here, because guess what? We will never move to the next step unless there is some sort of pressure put on these farm owners to ensure that their workers are going through the testing process.
And look, there's a huge impact on those migrant workers. There's also a huge impact of being held back on the economy in Windsor. I imagine there are, a lot of small businesses, a lot of businesses, period, that can't reopen. And time is ticking. It's a tough time even when you are reopening right now.
And that is the $1 million point, Vashi. So why would you ever think the mayor of Windsor would be advocating so hard on a farm issue 45 kilometers away? It's because we're part of this broader region. And if I don't see action out there, my city can't move forward because we're attached to the region. And so I have business owners that have followed all those rules who are on the cusp of losing everything, of being unable to reopen.
Sorry, Mayor, your screen has just frozen. If I could interrupt you for a second. Your screen is frozen. There we go. Now I can see you again. Continue. My apologies.
Sorry about that. I am fighting for those workers in the city who want to reopen, who want to get their businesses reopened, who have been following all the rules and are being held back because of the inaction by farm owners 50 kilometers away. We want to work together. We want to move forward as a region. We have to be part of the region, but I cannot sit back and be silent as long as businesses in my community are going to be impacted in a negative way because of the inaction 50 kilometers away.
And just finally, before I let you go, I understand, again, the focus on the farm operators. You mentioned the Premier sort of threatened that he has additional tools he could use. In your conversations with the Premier, isn't it incumbent on the provincial government to do something too?
Well, listen, there is no doubt the federal government's responsible for the temporary foreign worker program. They created the pathway for these folks to get here, but the province is responsible for health, for labor, and for agriculture. And so everyone plays a role. Again, it's that bit in the screwdriver. What bit do you put in there, and how do you deal with the situation you have in front of you? We all want to move forward. We all have to play a part, but asking the farmers only to comply in a voluntary way, I fear won't make any meaningful change a week from now. And I don't want to be back here a week from now having the same conversation about inaction with no plan to move forward. I want a plan. I want to be part of that plan if you need me. We're willing to be there. In fact, the city's already there. We opened up an isolation and recovery center for these folks once they're identified as being COVID positive. So we put our skin in the game. We need the other levels of government to do the same thing.
Okay, I've got to leave it there. Thanks, Mayor Dilkens. Appreciate your time as always.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.